My name is Alina A. and I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about two stories that involve how to reach success. The first one is about diamonds, no less, and it's a true story. As told by Earl Nightingale and others, there was this rancher in Africa who owned a huge ranch, but he started to hear about people finding diamonds in other parts of the continent. Well, he gets obsessed with this idea of finding diamonds, sells his ranch for pittance, and takes off looking for these diamonds. He went all over the place and found nothing. Nada. Zip, zap, zilt, zero. So he gets very depressed and throws himself into a river and drowns. Kind of a bummer of a story up until now. Wait, there's more. Back home at the ranch, one day the new owners were strolling by a little, river that crisscrossed the ranch when they saw that the sun was shining on something in the river and that it made it glisten. So they got closer and picked it up. It was a big rock. And sure enough, when the sun sort of hit it in a certain way, it was a pretty rock. Well, they took it home, put it on the mantle. When a friend came to visit and saw the rock and started looking at it very closely and said, "Where did you find this?" And they said, "Well, down by the river." And in fact, the river's full of them, just a little bit in all different sizes. And the guy goes, "Do you know what you got here?" So, "Well, it's a pretty rock." "No, my friends, this is the biggest diamond I have ever seen in my lifetime." And they said, "Not you're dashing." Well, they brought in the experts, and sure enough, it was the biggest diamond found to date in Africa. And all these other rocks in the river turned out to be diamonds. And the ranch itself turned into the biggest producer of diamonds in the entire continent. So what does that have to do with anything? With you, with me, with success, with everything? Well, here was this rancher who was sitting on a field full of diamonds, and yet he thought he had to go find them elsewhere. Well, it applies to us because we too have all sorts of diamonds within us, in our mind, in our subconscious. We don't need to go finding them outside of ourselves. These diamonds we have inside, and they're in all sorts of states of being polished, find the key diamonds, and by the way, all successful people, athletes, etc., all have a common set of diamonds which they have polished such a way that they have reached great success and great abundance. So, how does that relate to the second story? Well, the second story basically says, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And if I could polish my own diamonds, you can do it too. The second story is my own story. As a child, I was dyslexic, and as a result of my parents getting separated and divorced when I was 10, my mother became, pretty aggressive because she fell into a bit of a depression. As a result, I became pathologically timid. And as a result of being pathologically timid, all through elementary school and high school, I was bullied pretty much every day. Well, notwithstanding what some might consider challenging factors, being dyslexic, being very, very extremely timid, etc., I nevertheless was able to reach the top of two countries which were wildly different countries. In the U.S., this is just to give you a bit of a context, but to make a long story short, I was invited by the White House to draft the White House plan to implement the NAFTA after I had participated as a VIP opinion leader from California in the campaign to ratify the NAFTA and had been invited by the White House to the strategy sessions with the cabinet. When we were successful and the NAFTA was in fact passed by the Congress, that's when the White House called me and asked me to draft their White House plan. Partly, I imagine, as a result of this, although at the time I had also been nominated as Entrepreneur of the Year, I was named as one of the 20 women of most influence in the entire United States. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, at some point in 1998, I decided to come back to Mexico. I'm originally from Mexico. And in Mexico, they really couldn't care less of all the things that I had accomplished in the United States. So I pretty much had to start from zero and giving English classes. but I was also a volunteer in an organization called A.C.E. And what the A.C.E. did was represent the entire Mexican private sector in the negotiation of Mexico's free trade agreements. So I started off as a volunteer as a research analyst when they were negotiating the free trade agreement with Europe. And again, to make a long story short and summarize everything, ultimately I became the vice chair of the entire organization, coordinating all the Mexican private sector with all the feedback with the government negotiators, uh, checking the pulse of what the postures were of the different sectors, helping them define their postures, etc., etc. And I coordinated pretty much all the free trade agreements up until the agreement with Japan. So the thing is, how does a dyslexic, ridiculously shy kid get so successful and reach such heights? Well, it was because I had a certain set of diamonds that I took care to polish very much. Well, not just me, others as well. For example, my mother, who was quite a pioneer in her own time, perhaps gave me the biggest diamond, and in fact, she helped me polish it. She really had and insisted upon a tremendous passion for excellence. And I don't mean just a passion for excellence, I mean a tremendous power for excellence. She would not brook mediocrity in any aspect, in any manner, way, or form. Just to give you an example. She also believed in a classical education, and so music was obviously part of that. And I said, well, piano. Well, the problem was my little hands don't reach the octave. So that did not matter to my mother. She took me to the National Conservatory of Music, where career pianist, concertists go to study, and insisted I be registered or inscribed. And the director took a look at my little 5-cent hands and said, with these 5-cent hands, forget it. Well, she insisted, and so I had to take 3 years of solfeo, what they call the solfege, the me, because my hands were too small, my lungs were too, I just could, music was not my thing. But that didn't matter. I had to be at the National Conservatory of Music because that's where you learned with incredible excellence how to do music, even though I kept telling her that's not me. But I ultimately was very thankful because thanks to all these years of learning music, subsequently I was able to learn guitar pretty much on my own and was in a music group I loved. Well, the fact is, I was also, according to my mother's theories, in one of the best schools, if not the best school in Mexico. It was very, very rigorous academically. And I say it's the best school because in the exams to enter the National University, we always scored number one. Occasionally the German school also scored number one, but pretty much we were always the number one school in the nation. Well, that formation, those years of such academic rigor, when I did go to study in the States, my first year, I ended up teaching calculus to my fellow students because I was so far advanced in my own preparation. But another thing happened. When I went to the States, I really kind of changed personality altogether. I left behind me all the bullying, all the timidness, and I sort of blossomed, as it were. And the reason I blossomed is because somewhere inside, my self-confidence took hold. Because I was so well prepared from school and from this passion for doing everything to the very best that I could do, I really started doing very well, as it were. And one thing started to lead to another, and I ended up at Stanford, then at the Stanford Law School. And then my first year, I just happened to be walking down the halls and saw on the bulletin board a call for papers for a contest. And the contest was from all of California, all first-year students, to present their their first-year moot court brief, which everybody had to do. It's sort of a paper on pretending that you're before the Supreme Court and you argue a case. Well, I sent my moot court brief in, why not? And they chose 3 out of 50, and I was one of the 3. But the interesting thing was I had no idea what I'd won. I had seen something on the bulletin board and pursued it. Well, it turned out to be the #1 law firm in the entire state of California, and people were dying to be hired by this law firm. Well, as I said, the cosmos sort of aligned itself, and one thing led to another until I got all the way up to the White House. So it was a matter of being well prepared, passion for excellency. But there was one other, I also was very enthusiastic. I was very enthusiastic, and enthusiasm sells. But there was one other diamond, as it were, that I'd always had from childhood. And maybe this is the most important one of them all. Perhaps because I was treated so badly with all the bullying and stuff, I developed a tremendous sense of empathy, and I could detect when other people were either feeling low or their self-esteem wasn't at where it should be, or simply I detected there were some diamonds in there which, with a little bit of polish, would make them shine tremendously. And that was, I was always attracted, always, to helping others. And that, I think, is what led me to great success. I had never thought of myself as pursuing success. I had a lot of goals that I wanted to reach. I wanted to study in England, and I ended up studying in England, etc. But I was always attracted to helping my fellow person. And at this point in my life, it is a tremendous, sorry about that. At this point in my life, it's been a tremendous pleasure to give back to society, to help others reach great success. Because there is another diamond that is shared by a lot of successful people. And that is that exactly at the time when they were struggling in life and trying to figure out how to move forward and do better, a mentor showed up in their lives. And this mentor helped them see life from a different perspective, such that it transformed their life and launched them up to great success. And that's what I love to do. There is no greater satisfaction than seeing the sparkle in the eyes of the person who's being coached when they start to see and actually feel the transformation that's taking place in their life when you're helping them polish their diamonds, as it were. There are some key diamonds that everybody has and that need to be polished in terms of skills, attitudes, and mindsets that'll help you reach new heights. And it helps talking to somebody and exchanging ideas and stuff, and they can pinpoint this is where you need to work on a little bit more and stuff. So it is incredibly wonderful to motivate and inspire people to reach great heights. And it is my way of giving back to society and a way of thanking from the bottom of my heart all of those who were kind enough to help me open my wings, polish my diamonds, and launch me to success in 2 wildly different countries. Thank you. And this is my way of paying back the favor. So, love to chat with you. Love to figure out which are those diamonds that we need to work on and launch it to a great brilliance and splendor. As Jim Rohn liked to say, you don't attract success and abundance by what you want. You attract success and abundance by what you become. And for changing that a little bit, it's the brilliance of the diamonds that you have inside that attracts success and abundance. And it really does work. So, do check our webpage for more information. We'd love to chat with you. We have many ways of customizing our service. We can do it on a one-on-one basis or on an enterprise basis, even countrywide basis. So do give us a call or send us an email, and we'll be happy to sit down with you and start visualizing a fabulous, fabulous future. Cheers.